Hey there, my name's Rod Yates. Welcome to Mastering Events, an Audience Republic podcast. Each episode, I'll be talking to some of the world's most accomplished event professionals to discover how they got where they are today, the lessons they've learned throughout that journey, and their insights around event marketing and maximizing ticket sales. My guest today is Jenny Oppenheimer, VP, Head of Marketing at SaveLive. Jenny's exposure to live music came early when she'd go and see punk bands in Los Angeles as an 11-year-old. She's since gone on to have an incredible career in the music and concert industries, having worked at AEG Live, Live Nation, Nettwerk Music Group, and ARTISTdirect, to name just a few. When COVID hit and she was furloughed from Live Nation in 2020, she founded Venues for Voting, which matches underutilized live space with the need for safe and accessible voting locations across America. Now with SaveLive, she's helping to provide the tools for independent venues to grow their brand and business. Not surprisingly, this conversation covers a lot of ground and features a lot of great marketing insights, but we started right back at the beginning.
My parents were not into music. They were both involved in theater and interested in theater by interest and profession. But my sister is 7 years older. And I just thought, well, she is cool. But at the time, I just thought she was the coolest. And all of her friends were super cool. And so they would let me hang out. And I would listen through the door. And she would play Beatles records and Queen. And I had like the Oklahoma soundtrack and Schoolhouse Rock. And then I would sneak into her room and she had something called the Rocky Horror Picture soundtrack. And I was just like, what is this?
Wow.
Oh my God. And I was probably about 7, maybe 8, because she's about 7 years older. And so that's sort of where it started. And then I was lucky enough that her best friend, when my sister went away to college, her best friend was still in town and would babysit for me. And her boyfriend, who was a little bit older, was John Denny from the Weirdos. And so they would take me, she would take me to shows because she had to babysit and didn't want to miss out. And so I would be like 11, 12, 13 going to LA punk shows, which was pretty great.
Yeah, like who are you seeing? Because I've spoken with people like Fat Mike from NoFX before, and he's spoken about the LA punk scene, and it was kind of violent back in those early days.
Yeah.
Like, what did you see at these shows?
I remember seeing the Angry Samoans and being like, what is this? What is happening here? Weirdos shows, I kind of understood. Saw some early X shows. Saw a lot of like weird hair metal because I grew up in Los Angeles. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to even remember. There was like a local band called Paris Toys with a Z. They used to play at the Troubadour. I think they were made up of kids from high school. But you could just sort of stumble around and see music. It was really easy to see music. And so there was a lot of stuff happening. It was fun. It was wild.
Yeah. And were you hooked? Were you hooked from day one?
Reluctantly. Like, I grew up sort of as an MTV generation. I remember when it launched. I remember where I was when it first went on air. Los Angeles was not a test market, but Greenville, South Carolina was, and that is where I spent my summers. And at my Aunt Jane and Uncle Bill's house. And the TV was never allowed on, but there was a big exception, and I remember just sitting and waiting and watching and what is this? This is magic. And so I really thought I never thought I was going to perform. I always thought I was going to do something behind the scenes. And I thought, I'll be a video director. That is what I want to do. I really love photography. I love cruising up and down Melrose with the punk scene and the thrift shops. And that was very much my vibe. And I just thought, I'll do that. And then I didn't. And I just went into an entirely different avenue.
Well, so what is the stepping stone then from, what was that avenue? But then ending up working at publicity at Mercury Records back in 92. Like, was there a logical sort of stepping stone to that place or not?
Probably. I mean, I like to say that when people ask me about my career, I sort of scratch my head and say, I just thought it was a series of jobs, but I guess it is a career. In college, I loved the bands that would come in to Tucson. And Tucson had a really, in the 80s and 90s, had a really supportive music scene, both for local artists and the bands that would come through. Everybody would go see shows. There was not a ton of other things to do. We'd also have these huge house parties, a lot of punk bands. It was really fun. And at one point, we had a 2-day festival up in the mountains of Tucson, and it was called the Baja Music Fest. And so the first year we went, it was Jonathan Richman and Giant Sand and just a bunch of local bands playing. And then the next year, I said, "Oh, you know what? I'll be the publicist." And I had no idea what that meant. And I don't even know if I did anything other than like put up flyers. We don't really have to do anything. And at the same time, I met, there was a big connection between Santa Cruz and Tucson, and the bands in Santa Cruz, like the Pitch a Tent bands, Camper Van Beethoven, Spot 1019, things like that, Monks of Doom, and Tucson. And so I met those guys in Camper Van Beethoven and their manager, and he had a girlfriend who was head of publicity at Virgin Records. And after interning at a bunch of record companies when I moved back to Los Angeles, she said, "I have a friend who's head of publicity at Mercury Records and he needs an assistant. Can you just go interview over there?" And I did. And I have to say that he must have had a terrible assistant that he was replacing, because I don't even think I got 2 feet out the door when he was like, "Yes, you. Absolutely you. Come back." He and I still joke about it today.
Right.
His name is Howard Parr. He's a music supervisor now. We joke that we bonded over our love of Ab Fab and the Young Ones. And that was, 30 plus years ago. And he was the most lovely, frustrating, cool first boss that somebody could ever have. He really gave me so much autonomy to run with my artists. I was doing tour marketing, but he was, doing other stuff. And so I would create press days for big artists and things like that. And he was just really supportive about it.
Who are some of those artists? I was trying to think of the Mercury roster back then.
Oh my God. Okay. Well,
Bon Jovi? Bon Jovi, was that a...
Absolutely.
Mercury? Okay.
Oh yeah. And I have a pretty good story about that. Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, Kiss,
Wow.
Scorpions, Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden. I had all of those. But then I also had Bruce Dickinson's cousin, Rob Dickinson, who was in Catherine Wheel. Catherine Wheel X, we had a lot of the creation bands. So I got to be friendly with Alan McGee and Dave Bates from Fontana. Howard is English, and so he would take all the English bands and all those guys.
That's such an interesting time for bands like Def Leppard and Bon Jovi, because 92, 93, of course, grunge is coming in, and the scene which they ruled in the 80s is really on the downward slope. So I guess you had to navigate that. Is that the case?
No, absolutely not. I was not that important in my career at that point. But to some extent, we all had to sort of reposition things. I remember it was when John cut his hair, and the photo shoot that I believe it was Caroline Grayshock who did it, really talented photographer. The whole big thing was, oh my God, John has short hair, and that got a lot of play. So we leaned into that a little bit.
Okay.
Richie, I think, was doing a solo record, and so we leaned into that. The guys in Def Leppard were just so nice and so cool, and they were just like, we'll do what we do. We'll still sell out the Forum. It'll be fine. I spent an amazing time with Sir George Martin because he put out a Gershwin record that he had produced a bunch of tracks, and I got to take him around to KCRW, which is our local NPR station. And I think I might have been the only person to just be, completely gobsmacked about having him in my Toyota Corolla and driving him around. And he was great. He was very kind, very sweet about it.
What an amazing first job.
You know what? It really was. I don't think I appreciated it at the time. And the music industry was, I like to say, I'm sorry we ruined it for everybody else, because we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of expense accounts. And, we worked hard, but we were silly, and nobody had a laptop, nobody had a cell phone. So when you were done, you were done. And you would wait out in front of a venue all night thinking that the president of Polygram Records was going to show up, and he never did. And then, you'd go on to something else. It was, it was fun.
Wow. I mean, so much has changed in the world, the music industry since those days. But were there any things you learned just about things like fan loyalty or, customer engagement that still rings true today?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important to be honest and forthcoming with your fans, whether it's one-on-one or in a mass statement. I like to say you don't have to tell everybody everything, but everything you tell has to be the truth. And I think that that's really important. And I think letting people know that you understand their experience and you understand sort of what's happening. It takes a lot for people to be a fan, come to a show, go out, especially now, especially if you're older, you've got kids, you've got family, you've got work the next day. It's not that easy, and it's expensive. I'm on the live side now, on the venue side, and we don't own the content. We only own the experience. And so it's really important that we make that experience as memorable and smooth as possible. It's not always going to go like that. Somebody's going to have a bad time. You're going to find that person who's just having a miserable night, and there's nothing you can do about it except for empathize, and hopefully, it doesn't have anything to do with you. When I was a publicist, I always had a stack of tickets, and I would go into the back or find a super fan and just send them to the front, send them to the VIP section, because especially in Los Angeles, this is who you get in the VIP section. Right. It's, everybody who works at the label or the agency, and they're all talking. And as an artist, you don't want to see that. You want to see the super fan up front. So I loved upgrading. Now I really like the email journey and engaging with the audience and the fans that way, offering specials or Easter eggs or even promotions to reward fan loyalty. Some things I've tried to experiment with and failed or didn't succeed as much as I wanted to were loyalty programs, subscription models, and things like that, to just really engage and reward the frequent flyer, as I like to call, somebody who comes back again and again.
Right. So that email contact is important for you, that owning your database and then actually being able to reach people directly. That's key for you.
Oh, it's key. I talk about it daily, and I think I talked about it 3 times already today, is data is only as good as how you use it. And the most basic is your email database, whether it's past purchaser from your ticketing company, or they've signed up directly to a venue newsletter, or you've had a relationship with a third-party partner to collect data on your behalf if there's a sweepstakes or a partnership going on. That way, you already have a fan. You don't have to convince them to come back and check you out. You hopefully have a couple of touch points, name, email, zip code's great, what they already went and saw, so maybe genre. How many tickets do they buy? Are they buying 4 tickets? Are they sort of the leader? Are the instigator of the fun? And that way you can sort of market to them in a way that's different. Some of the things I also like to explore, please don't tell anybody about this, is when you're in a cashless venue and you're using a POS to buy beer and your credit card's going through, is it Square? Do I have your email address? Did you get a receipt? If I have your email address and you got a receipt, were you the one who bought the ticket? Can I communicate to you? Maybe there's a special or a beer or some sort of thing that we can touch those data points together. But yeah, I love email marketing, and I love a journey that you could take them on and know before you go. I wish I had more time, and ultimately I'd like to get back to it. But the fan journey post show, thanks for coming. Did you see that we have these on sale? I'd like to reward you for coming with, a free ticket to a created content night that we might have, that we're papering.
There's a lot to unpack there. There's
Sorry.
some incredible... No. That was so great. Look, I'll pick out a few things which you just mentioned then. You mentioned that you might market differently to if you can figure out who's a leader in the group, who's the person that's buying the tickets and maybe influencing their friends to come. Your messaging to them might be slightly different. How would you... In what way? Like, what are some of the really effective ways you've seen to target those people?
I don't have to convince them. I just have to make sure that they know about it and that they have the assets and information to convince their friends. So I'm going to make sure that they have catchy art to share or interesting descriptions. I'm going to give them as much content as possible. I'm going to give them video content that they can share. Something that they can grab and stream and send around. I'm going to give them enough time to gather their friends. So I'm not marketing to them sort of last minute. They're the ones that are going to be rallying their friends together, and they're going to need a little bit of time to get everybody going. When I'm trying to market to new people, that's more lead generation. And that's a different approach in that I'm going to sort of introduce them to the venue rather than maybe necessarily the artist. I'm going to make sure that they know exactly what's happening, and where we are and what we're doing. And then I'm going to hit them with show marketing messages and calendars. And they're going to be a little more broad in their calendar messaging. And the instigator, I probably know what genre they're into, and I'm going to target them and segment them a little differently.
Right. And they will have come on your radar because they bought a ticket in the first place. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Okay. You mentioned Easter eggs in the email journey. What kind of Easter eggs do you put in your emails?
Oh, I like to, as much as I like to do literally physical sort of scavenger hunts and fun things, in the wording, we like to just kind of drop hints about what might be coming up and surprise and delight on things that might be new.
But you actually do scavenger hunts as well, do you?
Well, we've done them. When I was at Live Nation, they didn't like us to do it. It's a liability. I did it anyway. Don't tell. We haven't done them in a long time. And I sort of like that, especially there's certain markets where it's fun and more conducive to it. Believe it or not, New York, scavenger hunts in New York are so fun because everybody's out walking around anyway. Scavenger hunts in Los Angeles, not that great. Everybody's in their car. So you sort of have to, college towns are fun to do them in. And I've had people just stumble upon tickets and had no idea what was happening and they weren't part of it. Like, okay, well, that's fine. Come on in. But, we like to sort of work with the artist to drop hints. And please don't ask me which ones, because I don't remember anymore who did them.
That's okay. That's all right. You mentioned Live Nation, which I think you joined in around 2012 as National Director of Marketing for Live Nation clubs and theatres. What did you learn, particularly about audience behaviour in that time? I think I've seen statistics that people will only travel so far to a gig, for example. So, A, is that true? And B, how does that then impact, how geo-targeted your marketing was in those days?
Right. So I'm going to answer your questions with depends on the market.
A shrug?
Which is the worst, worst answer. Yes, sometimes people will not travel. People in Los Angeles will not go to Riverside for a show. People in Riverside will absolutely go to Los Angeles or Orange County, but it won't be in the reverse. In Oklahoma City, they will go to Tulsa, They will go to Dallas. They'll make a weekend out of it. But people in Tulsa and Oklahoma and Dallas are not coming to Oklahoma City. So you have to sort of think about where you're marketing and how you are getting the message out. So there is no hard and fast rule about 50 miles or 50 miles from the center, because in Riverside it would be, we'd do a 50-mile radius, but it would be, we'd center it 20 miles to the east because we wanted to get the desert communities, but didn't want to get Los Angeles and Orange County. So we'd look on a heat map and pick a zip code that was sort of in that area and geo-target that way. Austin will hit San Antonio. San Antonio, you can't really get people from Austin to come unless it's the only play. So you really have to kind of look when your talent buyers booking shows and they're booking in Lubbock. Don't book in McAllen. Like, I'm not going to be able to sell that as much if it's unless I get mine on sale first. It's going to be hard. So it's really, looking at the data and finding where people are coming from, and then remembering certain things like if you're in a college town and you're trying to go by purchaser zip code, don't, because all those kids have their parents' credit cards and they are not in the same state as where you were, as where they came from. And, it's just, you get to kind of know your venue. The other important thing is, and one of the real things I learned at Live Nation, is listen to the locals. I'm in Los Angeles and I don't know as much about your market as you do. I know a lot about marketing. I know a lot about managing a marketing department, but I don't know your local record store. Take me over there, introduce me to them. But you're going to be the one who's going to know how your audience behaves. We're going to reach them together.
Interesting. I mean, audience behavior in general, I presume, has probably changed vastly over the last, I was going to say 10 years, but probably even over the last 3 to 4 years. What are the biggest changes that you've seen?
Buying habits, buying timeline. Everybody's buying later right now, with a few exceptions in different genres. Everybody's buying later. They don't know if they're going to get COVID. They don't know if they're going to be able to go. They don't know if the band's going to cancel. It's a hassle to get your money back. Sometimes the band doesn't cancel. They might just postpone, and then they've got your money. And so people wait longer and longer to buy. If you're in a theater and it's seated, it's always going to move faster on the on sale. You're going to have that slow maintenance period, and then you're going to have a tick up at the end. P1, your top selling tiers, are still moving, and your VIP experiences are still moving. But it's the rest of it that's just a little slower. Country buys faster. Rock, metal at the end. Hip hop walks up, makes everybody crazy. Hard punk, young skewing, walks up, makes everybody crazy. Everybody knows it, and everybody yells about it all day long. Latin, you really have to segment how you're reaching people based on the type of artist. Is it Mexican? Is it Puerto Rican? Is it Cuban? Is it Afro-Cuban? Is it Tejano? It's such a wide genre that all has different buying histories and ways to reach people. But overall, overwhelmingly, people are buying much, much, much later and buying more VIP experiences.
Okay, so how do you then tailor your marketing? Are you, on the one hand, really playing up the VIP? Are you really playing up the VIP experiences? And on the other hand, how are you trying to get these people who buy late to, come on, buy early? Like, how are you trying to do that?
I know. It's so frustrating. I mean, ultimately, I love jacking up the price day of, but people don't seem to care.
Is that right? So they're not price sensitive?
People are very price sensitive, especially if you have a lot of shows going out that, while the music might not be in the same genre, the audience is in the same genre. And you can have Polyphia, Parkway Drive, Corey Taylor within 10 days of each other. And, really, they're all different, but they all have the same fans. So, people didn't get a giant raise. And so money is still tight and people are buying choices. They're not buying all of them unless they're in that VIP P1 demographic, which there's a lot of those people still out there. So we definitely market a VIP experience, a little bit more space, a little bit nicer chair, maybe a private bar, maybe a private bathroom, maybe just a better space overall, closer, maybe to the back, maybe to the front. So marketing that VIP experience to them is really on top of show marketing. We want you to know about the show, and then we want you to know about what a great time you can have. It used to be sort of, a date night or business flex. And now it's just people who want a little bit more space and comfort. If they're going to go out, they might as well make it nice. And then price it so that it's not prohibitively expensive.
I think I interrupted you slightly when you were I think you were going to talk about the people who buy late. What you can try and do to attract them to buy earlier. Have you found any strategies particularly impactful?
No. And if I do, I'll let you know. It's almost impossible. And it makes us collectively crazy. All marketers are like, why did these people buy late? All you can do is just keep putting the information in front of them, keep putting the information, try to have a big on sale push. It's just people, they just always do it. People are saving their money. They're trying to figure out if they're going to pay all their bills. They're trying to figure out where they're going to go. In a GA room, it's not even, why. They're just like, I'm going to get my space. In a theater, in a seated theater, in that kind of configuration, people don't buy as late. But in a GA room, it's just the way it is. And you account for it. Your closing plan is heavy. You have a solid on sale announced. Maintenance is mostly organic. Maybe something sort of interesting, but not a lot of money spent, if any. And then you run a big back end push.
Right. You mentioned that with VIP tickets, people want that little bit of extra space. But even for GA tickets, have people's expectations of venues changed over the years? Do people have higher expectations of what your venue should be like these days?
I think so. I do. People really want community, and they really want to feel respected and valued. And while maybe 10 years ago you could get away with kind of the gruff people who worked there or the security guard who was a little overwrought, it doesn't fly anymore. People want to feel respected. They want their space. They get out of hand. There's a little bit of entitlement. It's easily diffused. But I think audiences, for the most part, are there to be with their friends, to have community, to feel good, to have a night out, to enjoy it. And they sort of expect a level of professionalism from the people around them. They don't want to wait forever for a drink. They don't want to go into a grimy bathroom. They want to have good sound. They could stay home easily and have a really great time. We're trying to get them to come out.
Do you play that up in your marketing? Just the fact that come here and this will be a nice experience?
Sometimes. That's more on the brand side than the show side. But yeah, for brand marketing, absolutely. And especially for private events, we want to make sure that the venues look good, that, it wouldn't be someplace where you wouldn't want to bring your mom for a wedding walkthrough or a bar mitzvah or a corporate event. So we try hard to keep them clean and professional looking.
I was speaking to Rev Moose from Nevo, and he was talking about how communities, how important it is for venues to engage with their community and just to become part of people's daily life, pretty much. I mean, are you seeing ways that venues are really doing this effectively? Any kind of little techniques or innovations that venues are using to really become part of people's lives?
Yeah, I mean, I think engaging the community and having the high school graduation there or a vintage fair or anything that's not necessarily music related or open during the day. Dog adoptions. We've done ASPCA things in venues. We've done record fairs, vintage fairs, School of Rock parties and showcases, talent shows, anything interesting. So
Right.
I think it's really important. And I think the venues now, especially the smaller independent ones, are really interested in being part of the community. And the community knows that. They rely on them. They're good partners.
Obviously, in your work with SaveLive now, you're working very closely with a lot of independent venues. What are you seeing as the biggest challenges that they're facing at the moment?
I think one of the bigger challenges is competing with the kind of larger global corporations that are coming into their neighborhoods and outspending, outbidding, and sort of muscling them out. And I like to tell them there's room for everybody. Don't worry about them. There's room for everybody. Let them do their thing. We're just going to do what we do, and we're going to do it really, really well. We're not in competition with them. They're in competition with themselves. Let them do their thing. I think a lot of our venues and our partners are excited about the opportunities that we bring them, in that we have assets and resources that were previously unavailable to them. We have a talent team that's unrivaled, amazing talent buyers. Our marketing team is great. Financial analytics, where we can really look at the data and deep dive on pricing and cost of goods and economic scale. We have a head of food and beverage who has experience from DLS and Wolfgang Puck, who comes from festivals and venues and also runs our operations because she's just that good. We bring to them assets and experience and a team that they just didn't have to start with. And we're taking everything they have. The reason why we're in business with them is because they're great venues and they're already on their way there. We're just helping them and we're on the ride together.
So in terms of the marketing that your great marketing team is doing, are there particular channels that you're seeing as being really effective? We spoke about email earlier and how effective that is, but are particular social channels more impactful for venues, for example, as opposed to for artists? Or is it very much, again, just a case-by-case basis?
It's a case-by-case basis for sure, and it's genre-based for shows. If you're older skewing, you're still heavily on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, for sure. If you're not on TikTok, if you're not advertising, both with show content and just kind of creative content for your brand, you need to be. And also they get ingested on Instagram. I don't watch anything on TikTok. I'm 112 years old. I see it on Instagram, So you want to make sure that your material's cross-platform. I don't market on Twitter. I don't. I just won't.
Okay.
I do some stuff on Reddit, believe it or not. And that's kind of going well. I love Bands in Town, Jambase, for whatever it is. OTT, started exploring with that from our friend Jamie Loeb. And
Right, yes.
So if I have the budgets for it and it fits, I find that it's really great. I still love, in certain markets, we have digital billboards. Some of our partners have contracts for them. And I love that. I'm not so data-driven in that I don't believe in experiential and anecdotal data. I think that there is unqualified marketing that happens that's still really important. And it, used to be chopped up to word of mouth. But I think it still is sort of in that vein. Anything that you can't qualify, I still think is, I put it in the word of mouth bucket because I don't know where else to put it. And I think it works and it means something.
Right. So that's that out-of-home advertising, the digital billboards, for example, maybe even flyers and things such as that.
If I never hear, did you flyer the college again? I'll be happy. I don't think it works. for me.
Okay.
I think posters in shops work. I think, put it in the window of the record store, the coffee shop, but don't tell me to go to a tattoo parlor, and don't tell me to do that sort of thing. I'm going to look at you and I'm going to go, yes, of course I'll do that, and absolutely not do it. It's a waste of time. However, I'm going to hit the Latin markets. I'm going to hit the churches. I'm going to hit for Latin shows, markets, churches, shops. That's an entirely different way of marketing. It is such a word of mouth, street team, hand holding. I call it hand to hand combat. It's very touch point and very personal. And I love it. It's exhausting, but it's a different way of doing things. And you learn so much about the people who are coming into your rooms.
So what are the most effective ways to get that word of mouth happening? You mentioned that it's almost hand holding. Are there certain ways that you can really generate that word of mouth, or is that one of those almost unknowable things that you just have to put all the pieces together and then hope that happens?
Yeah. So as much as I hate to say this, and I can't believe I'm going to say it out loud, it's going to be recorded, there's certain genres where it's influencer marketing. And that influencer is the trusted source that used to be, the cool friend that we all knew who had the record first. And as long as that person has credibility and is sort of honest in their assessment, I think it works. We have a couple of people in San Antonio that we work with for rock and metal, and they have great reputations. Their social profile is well curated. You can tell that they know exactly what they're talking about, and I'm happy to work with them.
And is that, like, I've seen some, particularly in that metal sphere, some of these influencers, I guess, will just kind of go through the tour poster or the lineup announce and just show how excited they are about various acts on that bill. Is it those sorts of activations, or what kind of? No, I don't know what I'm looking at.
No, I don't know either. No, I want somebody who's going to, especially because it's late selling, right? I want somebody who's going to go down to the venue during load-in and maybe take some video about what's happening, capture those moments. I'm not going to let them do sound check. I'm going to give them a couple of pairs of tickets before the show and start activating that way. It's not a one-time thing. It's building a relationship with them.
Okay. Where does SMS fit into your plans, if at all?
I love it. We haven't activated it just yet. It's expensive. It's a little compliance heavy right now. It's on the roadmap for 2024. Now that my partner, our VP of Marketing Technologies, is on board,
Mike Mallett.
I'm going to make Mike do it. He and I have talked about it for a really long time. I love it, and I think push notifications that way are so important. And I think that it's going to be part of our plans going forward as we sort of corral our partners a little bit more centralized on platforms.
Gotcha.
They've all come to us with different platforms, and as we can and as we see fit, we're sort of rolling them into maybe a solution that works for everybody for different things.
Right. A little earlier, you mentioned post-event marketing. I guess, the thank you email or, activations like that. What do you find is really working for you post-event to both say thank you, but also to generate loyalty and repeat custom? Are there certain methods that work really well for you?
I don't know. I'm not sure if any of it works, really. I just think it's important. It's my mom always said, say thank you as you're leaving. Or if you've been to somebody's house, say thank you. If you get a gift, say thank you. I'm kidding. I think it's important. I think it's important to let people know in a way that's not obtrusive. Hey, thanks for coming. We really appreciated your patronage. Did you know about these shows? You liked this one. Did you hear about this one? In a way that's not heavy-handed. It's not selling, but rather recommending. Nobody likes to be, really hit over the head with anything. So I think that's a good way of doing it. I also have been in situations where I really like to say, hey, thanks for coming. Here's 10% off an appetizer if I have a restaurant. Here's a free ticket to the silent disco that we're trying to paper,
Yeah.
And it's just, it's a little bit of a thank you. And then from there, I can kind of see who a fan is or interested on whether they opened it, whether they clicked through. Just more data, more engagement on what they're doing, more habits.
Right. Okay. How often is too often to contact people, do you think, on your email database?
Oh my God, I love this question. I don't want the entire venue database to get more than 2 emails a month. And then I'm okay with you sending genre-specific emails twice a month. I don't want any one person getting more than 2 emails, maybe 3 a month. 1 a week if you have a big database and something exciting is happening. But I get really frustrated. Maybe it's just me. I have unsubscribed to so many things because I've gotten every day an email and I can't. It's so disrespectful, I think, to clog my inbox that way. And it's unnecessary.
And has that been trial and error to get to that point, to reach that number of 2?
Yes. And people disagree with me constantly, and that's fine. It's just my opinion. What do I know? But yeah, it has been trial and error. We used to send them once a month. We used to send them every week. Content didn't change that much. It wasn't that interesting. We weren't segmenting. Our unsubscribe rate was high. That's the thing. I just am really precious and protect my unsubscribe rate. I almost take it personally when I see that somebody has unsubscribed. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'd email you and tell you that, but you unsubscribed. Sorry.
And that's, segmentation is obviously so key to that. Like,
Right.
how finely can you segment, do you think?
I think you can segment too fine and really miss out on some people who might be a casual fan and interested. I think what you don't want to do is get so granular that you're sending an email to 10 people. I think it's important to leave some of the outliers in there. I think it's important to, like I said earlier, the artist might be all of different genres, but the audience isn't. So make sure that you are smartly thinking, okay, well, that band used to be in that band and they played with this band. So maybe the people who were fans of them would also be interested in that. Okay, I'm going to hit all of those people.
Are you seeing any clever ways that venues are teaming up with sponsors that, help their bottom line, but also increase the fan experience?
It's funny. I was thinking about this just recently, and one of the examples that I could come up with was actually from a while ago, but I really love it. I was at the Forum in Los Angeles. Great venue. I used to go there as a kid. The Lakers played there. It was so fun. I think I saw the Harlem Globetrotters and the circus. It was just awesome. And then it went into disrepair. And then I think it was Irving Azoff bought it and spent a lot of money fixing it up. And one of the first things he did was put in really strong, great venue-wide Wi-Fi. And none of my venues had it. I was always on the corporate Wi-Fi. When I would walk into the building, it would connect. But the guests didn't have access to it, which is ridiculous. Because how am I going to get them to upload content from the show and create those magic moments and the FOMO moments that sell the next ticket to their friend? And so immediately we were like, let's get somebody to sponsor this and put it in. And I don't care what it says. I mean, it was back in the day where it popped up and you had to agree. and had a sponsor on it and stuff like that. But it was just so obvious, and I don't know why we hadn't done that. I don't care who the sponsor is. If you want to come in and clean my bathroom and make it look really nice, I'll let you put a sticker up there. So I think, on a smaller clubs and theaters level, I am okay with sponsorship coming in on a small level, as long as it's not a category killer. As long as it's, a brewery that's maybe doing a special brew for the venue. It's that kind of thing. Or they're sponsoring a green room. I'm not in the sponsorship division. Sponsorship division will probably get really mad at me for saying stuff like that. But from the marketing side, right. I'm okay with that. I used to sell sponsorship on the venue newsletters. On the venue website. There was just like a little square, and in Houston, the local record shop gave him like $200 a month to be on the website. It was fine with me. I don't care. I like you there. You fit with what I'm doing. In San Antonio, Libby Day, who was my marketer at the Aztec, and just fabulous. That's why I said her name. She was on the Riverwalk, and Hard Rock Cafe was on the Riverwalk, and she was talking to them one day, and they said, what if we gave you some money and we flyered together? And Libby said, what if you gave me $500 a month and you paid for the flyers and you put my calendar on one side and a 20% off coupon on the back side if you had a ticket from my show, and why don't you hand them out for me? And they said, that's the best idea I've ever heard. So suddenly, she's getting $500 extra a month, which I said, don't tell anybody about. Keep it local. Hide it in your P&L. We never had this conversation. And so, I think those local activations where you can work with your partners and your neighbors to make experiences both getting the word out or making your venue a little bit more comfortable without getting involved in what I like to call category killers, where you have taken, craft brewery off the table for somebody who could actually sell it, I think is great.
If you were to look into your crystal ball and look at what you think, everything's always changing. Audience have different preferences. What strategies do you see as being crucial for marketing venues effectively moving forward? Are there things that we're not doing now that you think are really going to become more important in the years to come?
I have no idea. I don't know.
That's all right. That's okay.
I think we're going to lean more and more into data. We've experimented with booking shows based on kind of avatars. Somebody was trying to do at one point for us, and I just said, people aren't going to come to this. Why are real people going to come and see fake people on stage? But they did it for ABBA in London, so what do I know? I have no idea, but I'm really excited to see what it is, and I'm going to grab hold of it and wrap my head around it and try my hand at it.
Nice. Very last thing, you were telling some great stories earlier about your times at Mercury and some of the artists that you worked with. So George Martin is obviously would have been an incredible experience. Are there any other, throughout your entire career, just kind of pinch me moments, just moments where you've got to work on a tour or at a venue or with an artist that you just always loved and it was a dream to work with?
You know what is really surprising? So right now at SaveLive, we have two co-founders, John Fogelman and Mark Geiger. Mark and I worked together at ARTISTdirect a long time ago, which was really the first B2C direct-to-fan portal. And we were doing things that are so apparent now and obvious, but in 1998, 1999, it was pretty interesting and brand new. And we were just a bunch of dumb kids running around, and we didn't really know what we were doing, but we had a really good time, and we worked really hard at it. I was not a Ricky Martin fan. I didn't really care about Ricky Martin, but we had the rights to his fan club, as well as a lot of other things. And it was really at his height. His popularity was enormous. I'm walking through the Oakland Coliseum, getting lost on the football field, trying to find his dressing room. And there's kind of a famous picture of it. You can find it on the internet. One of my coworkers and I We ended up in the wrong place. We were looking for the dressing room. We got to his dressing room. We knocked, come in, we opened the door, and Lars and James from Metallica, who were also our clients, were in the dressing room. And they had just been on tour. They had just gotten back like maybe literally the day before, and they were there with their wives. And there's a great picture of the three of them that you can find on the internet. My coworker took it, and it's just so funny. We just did like those kind of moments where I'm like, what am I doing? I loved anything having to do with bringing fans together with artists. Like I said, I grew up in Los Angeles, and I have terrible face blindness. I never recognize anybody. And so I don't care. And so people would be like, oh my God, did you see so-and-so? I'd just be like, I don't know. I have no idea who you're talking about. And because my parents were both in entertainment a little bit, it just wasn't interesting. So being able to connect fans to artists is always going to be an experience that's just really amazing. I did lose my mind when I was at Nettwerk Records. We shared space with Marcus and Mastering. And in the parking lot one day was a beautiful 1970s olive-colored Rolls Royce with a cream rag top. I can't believe I remember this. It was so long ago. And the license plate said RT Baker. And nobody else knew it, but I just started screaming, oh my God, Roy Thomas Baker's here. Roy Thomas Baker's here. I'm such a huge Queen fan. Oh my God. And, everybody thought I was kind of weird about that. I don't get starstruck, and I don't normally care. Drinking with Tom Jones in the hotel bar until 2:30 in the morning in New Orleans the night before Jazz Fest was pretty exciting. Clearly my goals skew older and weirder. I've been really lucky to meet a lot of really fun people, and they're just fun people. I will tell you what really sticks in my mind are the people I never want to see again. And I'm not going to tell you those. I'll tell you later.
That's fair enough.
Yeah. Those I'm just not too terribly interested in. I think
fair enough.
For all of us working with people and with fans, it's so easy and it doesn't take a lot to make somebody's night. I was at an erasure show at the Wiltern. And it wasn't my show. I wasn't working. I was there as a fan. I did have my laminate with me, my work thing, just so I could get around and get to get to wherever I needed to go. But I wasn't working. And this guy came down, and he was standing in the VIP section, and he was really tall, and he was having a good time. It was just one guy, and he was standing to the side. I didn't say anything. Then I turned around, and he was bringing 4 of his friends down, including one guy who was so tall. And he was just going to be blocking everybody. And so I stopped him and I just said, I'm so sorry. I can't let you come down here. These people have paid for this experience. And I love that you're excited about it, but you're going to be blocking. And I need you to go back to where you came from. And he looked at me and he said, do you really work here or are you just a bitch? And I just said, yes. And then I reached into my pocket and I said, but here's some drink tickets. Have a great time. Thanks for coming. Even that guy, I want to have a good time. And he wasn't wrong.
Right. That's a great note on which to end, Jenny. Thank you so much for all your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I don't know if any of this is going to be useful or you can use it. I'll probably sound crazy.
Not at all. It's all great. Thanks so much, Jenny.